Ooh.
Welcome to the Witchy Weirdos Podcast.
This is so strange.
This might not sound strange to the people that are listening on. Oh wait, Hannah, I can hear. Yeah, perfect. We're experiencing technical difficulties. We're trying something very new today, so it won't sound weird if you're just listening. But if you're on our YouTube channel, you might be seeing us right now, which is wild. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to record on Zoom and Anchor so that we can get this out everywhere. But yes, hi, welcome to the Witchy Weirdos Podcast.
We're here. We're doing this.
We're here. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Hannah. I nearly said hi, Tiffany, because I'm like looking at the screen.
Oh
no, I'm bouncing back.
You are. Okay, we good?
We're good.
No,
we're not good.
We're not good. What about now?
Hello.
I can still hear you. Why can I still hear you?
This is not good.
Wait, mute yourself on Zoom. What about now?
Oh, good?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
nailed
man.
it. We are anyway. I am Tiffany. This is Hannah, and welcome to episode 14 of the Witchy Weirdos Podcast. Last week I told you it was episode 12. That was a complete lie. It was actually episode 13, and I didn't find out until after. So welcome to episode 14. If you're listening on the streaming platform, great. Like we said, maybe consider hopping over to our YouTube channel for what is the Ratchet Witchy Weirdos Podcast version until we figure this out. Anyway, today we're talking about tarot.
We are. Very exciting. A little passion of ours.
Exactly. We've told some tarot stories on this podcast before. In our first episode, Hannah and I talked about ourselves a little bit. I talked about my mum's experience with tarot, and we talked about some weird stuff that went down when Hannah did a reading in my home I still live in. So we'll start off with like a little bit of history, maybe some of our experiences, and then a little reading.
Yeah, we're going to give a reading a go. I've never done a reading over Zoom before, so this could be itself something very strange, but we'll give it a try.
It's absolutely worth giving it a try. So I found a really cool website. It's called learnreligions.com, and I found a brief history of tarot, which I was like, hell yeah. This is by Patty Wingington. It was written 2 years ago. So It says, tarot is probably one of the most popularly used tools of divination in the world today. While not as simple as some other methods like pendulums and tea leaves, the tarot has drawn people into magic for centuries. Today, cards are available to purchase in hundreds of different designs, and there's a tarot deck for just about any practitioner. Completely true. There are so many different types of tarot decks, and some of them are absolutely gorgeous. Some of yours is absolutely stunning, Hannah.
I've got a really pretty one, and then I've got a really basic one, so we'll talk through those in a second.
Although many methods of reading the tarot have changed over the years, and many readers adopt their own unique style to the traditional meanings of the layout in general, the cards themselves haven't changed much. So, it's like tarot in general, it kind of comes from like very old French, Italian, like parlor games, which is really, really interesting. Tarot cards can be traced back to around the late 14th century. Artists in Europe created the first playing cards, which we use for games, and featured 4 different suits. These suits were similar to what we still use today, but the slaves or wands, discs or coins, cups, and swords. So normally it's wands. Sometimes I hear quite a lot.
Wands, swords, pentacles, and cups. As generally the ones still in the kind of packs at the moment.
So after a decade of using these, in the mid-1400s, Italian artists began painting additional cards, heavily illustrated to add to the existing suits. Those specific cards, when they were first made, were actually for like really wealthy families and members of nobility that could just commission artists to like make these gorgeous cards, like in these one-off cards.
If only.
Right? And some of them would feature like family members as like triumphs of specific cards. And a number of those sets specifically still exist today. And they were created for the Visconti family in Milan, which Yeah, it has several dukes and barons as well, which is really, really interesting. But because not everyone could afford to hire a painter to create a set of cards for them, after a few centuries, customized cards were something like only a few privileged people could own. It wasn't until like the printing press came along, like, you know, mass printing and mass availability of stuff, was that just playing card decks could actually be produced and the average person could have them. So like I said, at first it was kind of like a game, but after a while is when it was sort of used for divination. So in both France and Italy, the original purpose was a parlor game. And then it appears that divination with playing cards actually started to become popular in the 16th and early 17th century.
Isn't it funny how they always start off as games? Like the Ouija board started off as a game. Like they always start off as a game and then turn out into something more. And I love that.
What's really interesting as well is like it starts off as a lot of games for children who are typically like a lot more open to those kind of things. So it's almost like
very creepy.
It's almost like it is a game, and then the medium by which children and people use it it creates the perfect opportunity for it to be used for divination.
Oh, I like
that.
So
interesting. But yeah, by the 18th century, people started to attribute meanings to like specific cards, and then offer suggestions about how they could be laid out, and that's kind of like where that started to come along. And then there's a bit on tarot and the Kabbalah. So in 1919, that clearly says 17. Oh, it's because it says 81. My brain just added 8 and 1. Never mind. 1781, a French Freemason named Antoine Court de Gibelin, published a complex analysis of the tarot, in which he revealed that the symbolism in the tarot was in fact derived from the esoteric secrets of Egyptian priests. He went on to explain that this ancient occult knowledge had been carried to Rome and revealed to the popes, who desperately wanted arcane knowledge secret. In his essay, the chapter on tarot meanings explains the detailed symbolism of tarot artwork and connects it to the legends of Osiris and other Egyptian gods. Basically, just connects it to Egyptian gods. That's absolutely mad. The biggest problem with this guy's work, however, is that there was no real historical evidence to actually support it. That didn't stop a bunch of like wealthy Europeans from jumping onto the bandwagon. And in the early 19th century, playing card decks like the Marcel's tarot were being produced with artwork specifically based on his analysis, which is really, really interesting. In 1791, Jean Alep, a French occultist, released the first tarot deck designed specifically for divinationary purposes, rather than as a parlor game or entertainment. A few years later, he responded to de Geblin's work with a treaty of his own.
Okay.
I'm very confused.
This is going down like a very, I think basically, like political route.
It is. Basically, what I think happened is Jean responded to the original work with a new book explaining how to use tarot for divination. Okay. So there was the original book or the original work that said like this is where it all came from. It was all derived from these Egyptian like gods, and then Jean said, "Yo, this is how we use it as a divination tool." Pretty cool. The occult interest in the tarot expanded, became more associated with the Kabbalah and the secrets of Hermetic mysticism. I don't know what that is.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, interesting. By the end of the Victorian era, occultism and spiritualism had become popular pastimes for bored upper-class families. It wasn't common to attend a house party or find a seance and not find a seance.
Why is that not just us?
Or someone reading palms. That is literally just like any time we meet up now. But yeah, that is kind of the brief history of tarot.
It's fascinating.
So French, Italian, Egyptian, originally a game, now not a game.
No, now something very different.
But fun little tidbit for you. I told my boyfriend that we were doing this, and he got upset with me, and he said, "You're messing with powers you don't understand." And then I told him about the devil card. And he was like, "You're messing with stuff you don't understand."
Oh Lord. I'm surprised you didn't tell him that one like pre-moving in.
Oh my God. He would have literally saved the whole place. But yeah, that is the brief history of tarot. I didn't quite understand a lot of it. Definitely have a little look into it, but it looks like old Italian, old
more
French.
In depth than I kind of would have thought.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very
It is
weird.
such a fascinating kind of experience, I think, reading tarot cards. Yeah. And how you go into it is affects how it is for you, I think.
What do you mean? Like, I think it'd be really interesting because you've practiced tarot quite a bit now and you're something you actively work on. How did you start practicing? What's your like top tips or like, you know, you say like going into it, you said like going into it, you have to be in the right mindset.
Definitely. So I started practicing tarot about 3 years ago now. And I started out with the original Rider-Waite tarot deck that I feel like everyone starts out with. It is the basic deck, and it does what it says on the tin. It works, which is amazing. So I initially got into tarot because I wanted some guidance. And so when I got my first deck of tarot cards, I also got like a set of, not really like oracle cards, but like inspirational cards. They had kind of different quotes on it. You'd pull out a quote that would kind of inspire you and motivate you, like those ones. And I'm a big believer that you can manifest what you need to hear rather than it necessarily being something that is always like a divine energy or something like that. So when I first started off, it was all about, I thought if I pulled the cards, I would be able to know what I needed from the cards, which I think is a really good way of doing it. I think whether you're a skeptic or not, there is no harm in having something that provides you with a little bit of guidance. So that is why I started out with tarot decks, and it just got more weird from there. So I started doing readings for some other people. And again, when I started out, I wasn't necessarily believing in it being an energy or someone manipulating my cards. I all believed it was me and it's what I wanted, until I started doing some readings and I had some weird stuff come up. And I think that's kind of when my view on what tarot is has changed a little bit over time.
Oh my God.
There have been some weird experiences, but I think, again, it all depends on the energy you're putting into things. So if you are putting in the energy that you just want a daily reading or you just want a little bit of guidance, that is what you are going to get. You are not going to be communicating with some crazy spirits or anything like that. So I pull a card every day that just gives me a little bit of guidance on what my day to expect. It helps me kind of choose how to go forward in my day. But if you sit down and read cards with different intentions, different things will come up. And I think that is what we have experienced.
Oh, yes. Oh, I mean, when we did our tarot reading here, I appreciate someone that's listening might not know exactly what we're talking about. But we were asking about a very specific thing with a very specific tone, because we knew this situation was bad, but we wanted to be clear. And you could feel it. As soon as we sat down to do the reading, I remember saying to you, the air feels heavy. It was
so strange. I've never felt like something like that before with these cards until we sat down for that.
It was really, really weird. And then when we asked a very specific question about a person that was in my life at the time, and a card literally moved by itself, and then, you know, we picked it up and it was literally the devil card.
Oh, it's still so like crazy.
Oh, it was, I just can't. I remembered so clearly. I went to pick something at the other side of the deck and I saw it move and I was like, I'm just going to ignore it. And you were like, that just moved. And I was like, oh.
It actually did.
Damn it, Hannah. And then, yeah, the fact that it was that, I mean, answered my question.
It gave a very clear answer.
But whatever was giving us that answer, I did not want in the house, because like it was heavy. And I remember when we finished the reading as well, I remember like when we actually just like cleared the energy and stuff, and I was like, oh, it feels really different again. Like it feels better, and you could really tell, like you could feel the difference. When we started that session, I knew we had kind of screwed up.
We'd opened something a little bit, I think, then. And so like your energy with your tarot cards is something that is very important when you look into doing your tarot readings. So firstly, one thing to consider is it is generally better to be gifted a deck of tarot cards than to buy them yourself, so that you're getting that positive energy gifted to you, which is so cute. I think tarot cards make a really nice gift. I've been giving cards out to people for gifts for like the past 2 years now, where I'm just like, just have some of my positive energy, here you go. And so the next thing I would say about energy is to always clear your deck. And so, well, firstly, I have 2 different decks, and I have one deck that I will not use with other people. That's kind of my deck, is what I do my daily readings with. That's kind of just my energy on there. I don't really have to worry about anything else. My other deck, my original deck, is the deck that I do readings for other people with, and it is the deck that I've had spooky stuff happen with. So it is important to clear your energy between each reading. And so I'm sure if you've practiced tarot before, you'll know this, but I mean, you won't be able to see this on the podcast, but if you're watching the YouTube, you'll see what I'm doing. But I've always been told it is important to kind of set your intention, knock your tarot cards 3 times, and then visualize the energy coming out of the bottom. So the previous energy is leaving your cards, and then you can sit and manifest what your question is, what energy you're putting into it, whether you do want some kind of divine influence or whether you just want a little bit of guidance. So put that energy into your cards, which is always a good thing to do. And even, I mean, I don't think this is necessary, but between questions for myself, I will always clear the energy anyway, because I think you can go into something with more of a negative energy. Maybe if you're not looking forward to your day, but then you ask another question about like your month, you need to clear that energy in between, because otherwise that's going to kind of manifest and interlock a little bit. Yeah. And then I was going to say something else and it's gone from my head now. What was I going to say? There's something else you have to do. I can't remember what. So I'll come back to that if that comes back to my brain, because right now I cannot remember.
Oh, you've frozen on.
It's really not coming to me. But yeah. So your deck. With different decks, there can be different kind of things to do. So with your deck, you can read your cards. So with a deck like this one, like the Rider-Waite, your cards can be read forwards or in reverse, and they can signify different things. In other decks, that might not necessarily be the same. So I have the Wild Unknown Tarot deck, which is the deck I use at home. And on this one, there are no reverses. And I prefer no reverses. Personally, I think that you can kind of take what you need from that. You don't necessarily need the extra information that comes with a reverse card. But that is something also to think about when you're reading tarot.
So cool.
This is like, I feel really weird talking through this all, but it makes me realise how much I actually do know.
Yeah, you do.
Which is kind of crazy. So the next thing to talk about is what kind of spread you are going to pull. So when you pull tarot, you can do lots of different things. So firstly, what I do on a daily basis is I do a 1 card pull just for my day. And so what I do for that is I shuffle my cards after I've cleared my energy and everything. And then if a card jumps out, if it's sticking out, that might mean that's the card I'll pull. Or if I've shuffled a couple of times, nothing's particularly jumping out at me, I will then just split my deck in half, and whatever card is that card is the card I will read for that day.
That's really interesting.
So that's kind of like your simple 1 card question. That is going to be your more like generic, what guidance do I need for the day, stuff like that, versus your deep in-depth questions. And so the next very similar, like the very known card spread is a past, present, and future spread. And so what you would want to do for a past, present, and future spread is you would spread your cards out in a fan. And again, a card that jumps out to you or is significant to you, that is your first card. That is going to be your past card. I then tend to clear my energy in between each. But again, if you're focusing on one question, you maybe don't need to do that as much. But you then do the same thing, spread your cards, find a card, that's your future card, and same thing for your present card. And so they can be used in general if you just want to know like a general what past, present, and future, like what your life's going to be like. Or you can ask about a specific question, which is always quite interesting when you do it about a specific question and you do realise that your past has influenced how you are currently, and then you have that guidance on what way it will go and how it will go. I do think it's important to say that you interpret this how you need to hear this. So don't think that it is all knowing. You know, there is an element of it there, but if it says like you're gonna die, I mean, the card's never gonna just tell you that, but as a very generic example, interpret that how you will. Kind of think, does this mean I need to change my health element? Like, you can change your future, essentially. Nothing is set in stone with those cards. So use the cards to offer you the guidance you need, which I think is really important. And then you get into your more complicated spreads. So there are spreads out there for literally anything you want. There are spreads for romance. There are spreads for the new moons. I actually I have a tarot planner. This is a 2020 Biddy Tarot planner. And in here, she gives you spreads for kind of like new moons, full moons, the month. There was a spread for the summer solstice, which is really quite cool. So there are spreads out there for anything, and you can find them on the internet very easily. And it is really good fun to sit down and kind of do a full-blown spread about something that you are wanting guidance with. So I think that's kind of like the generics of what you should do, how you should sit down and do a tarot reading. Reading for somebody else is all kind of a personal preference thing. At the end of the day, the deck is your deck. So if you're comfortable doing a reading for somebody else and letting them put your energy on your deck, that is up to you. That is why I have two separate decks, just because I think it's just a little bit of I don't want to influence something, and I don't really want their energy to influence something, especially after that, like, death reading. I was like, yeah, no, that deck is not my deck anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that your mum said that when you touched her deck that she then didn't feel comfortable with it because you'd changed the energy. So that is something, be careful with other people's decks.
Absolutely. Especially if
the conclusion
if you are someone that's like predisposed to like seeing these things, being sensitive to these things, like you're very much like opening up a level of communication. And if you are predisposed to that kind of thing, it could be quite strong. And I think that's kind of what happened with me. And I think that's why I've been somewhat hesitant with diving into tarot myself. My mum's incredible quote, why she stopped doing tarot, was because every time she did it, it was too crowded. Which
still gives me shivers.
Exactly. So it's definitely like, make sure you have permission to put your energy on somebody else's cards. And make sure that they are comfortable with clearing the energy and that you help them clear the energy. It's kind of your responsibility if you're going to put it there to take it away as well.
And you can clear the energy, like I said, just doing the tapping and visualization. But depending on what happens, you might want to sage your deck. You might want to like use crystals around your deck, kind of charge your deck with positive energy. Like, you might want to sit there with your deck and do a positive meditation or a visualization. There is all sorts of things you can do, and the depth you want to take it is completely up to you. I think this is the thing with the deck, is that like, you don't have to be a spiritual person to use a tarot deck. A tarot deck can very much be just a guidance thing. You can use it if you don't believe it, and just use it to help you along your day and kind of see what you want to believe. And I think the thing about this is there is an element of the Barnum Effect. And so the Barnum Effect is the idea that when you read something about like your personality, you can pick up on the specifics. So this is something that is kind of considered with kind of when you go to see like a oh my god, why is the word left my head? Like if you go to get your tarots read, or you get your palms
like
read, or a medium, there we go. That's what it is, or a psychic. That's what I was thinking of. The idea of the Barnum Effect is they will use generic statements, like a non-effective, like real one, is that generalized statements can be used and you pick up on what is relevant to you. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that actually, yes, if you're using it as a con, that's a bad thing. But with the cards, I think that there is an element of this Barnum Effect because you will pick up on what you need to hear from the card. So you don't have to be a completely spiritual person for them to work. There is a level of skepticism in them, but that is up for you to decide. You know, at first, I would never have thought that these cards had any kind of like divination properties because I was using them with the hope for that Barnum Effect, essentially, that it would offer me the guidance I needed. And actually now, the longer I've used them, the more I'm believing that there's more of a connection to them than before.
Good.
But yeah, there's a lot of interesting, people have a lot of different experiences with cards, positive experiences, negative experiences. Like we said, we've talked about a couple previously of our own, of Tiff's sister having experiences with the cards. There is a lot that the cards offer, and it's really interesting.
Do you have any more like impactful experiences you want to share? You feel comfortable talking about?
So one thing I will share that I think is really interesting. So I started doing my daily reading. What month was it? I think it was May.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
So in May, I did my reading, and I had loads of specific cards. I think it's about 3 cards come up loads of times. So if I just have a look, I'm trying to like look through and see which ones it is. The Son of Swords came up. So in 1 week, from May 22nd to May 28th, I had the Son of Swords come up 3 times. And that was, you know, it wasn't one after the other. That wasn't some weird thing where I'd not shuffled properly. It came up on a Friday, it came up on a Monday, and it came up on a Thursday, which is really interesting. And what the Son of Swords kind of shows is the idea of determination, pushing forwards, but things will be exhausting. As you will know, May was the middle of the pandemic. I was working from home. I was quite struggling with that. And it kept saying to me, you've just got to keep pushing. It's going to be exhausting, but you'll get there eventually. And there were some other ones that came up repetitively. I'm trying to think what other ones it was. It's really hard to look at this and see. But there were some other ones that came up quite repetitively, which I think is really interesting, especially when you consider like the climate that I was asking those questions in. Other significant ones that I've had was I have a friend who I gifted a tarot deck to, and every time that she'd read it, things would come very interestingly true. And the interesting thing about this is that her family is a very like Christian family. She's never been brought up to believe in this, and her family aren't keen on the fact that she's got the deck in her house. Even though I gave it with like positive energy and like light and love, like it was never intended as like a negative thing. But they're very funny about it. But yet her readings are spot on, even to the point where she had readings that said stuff like, she'd ask about like if she was going to meet someone, and it would come up with stuff like you'll meet them at the end of a significant event or something like this, and she would meet someone at that time. And there was another card that she recently had. All of this seems to be over boys, but that said that like she would have he was a bit of a trickster. It kind of said that he would be not who he seems, and she of course didn't really believe that until he did end up being a trickster. So It's interesting.
That is really interesting. Wow.
It's definitely, I don't tend to ask big questions myself because I practice on the daily. Usually I'm just asking for like guidance. So I've never really had these massive, besides the like patterns, I've never had like these massive things come through. It's generally when I've been doing readings with other people. And I think it's because when you read for skeptics, they ask this big question because they don't think they'll get a big answer.
Yeah.
And then they do get an answer that is significant and does link to things. And it's funny. It's really funny. I used to do readings at my uni house all the time. And it started off with one of my like housemates being very skeptical. And by the end of it, he'd be like, can you do a reading for me? Like, what is going on? So yeah, they're kind of the experiences I've come across.
Every time you talk about it, I really feel like I need my own deck, like a proper deck.
I think I want to collect decks.
Yeah.
There's something so soothing about them. And like even just I've had this in my hand and I've been playing with it. It's just so relaxing. And yeah, it becomes part of my like daily routine, which I think is really nice.
I think
and it doesn't have to be this big bad scary thing.
Yeah, you've been really great with like your journey into this kind of thing in general, because you also journal a lot, which is something that is really important for like any kind of spiritual awakening. It's journaling, and it's like understanding your thoughts and taking that like quiet meditative time. You also do yoga, like like you are on it, and
my inner brain is just a rush.
I have so much respect for it. I really, really love it.
But I definitely think it can come under like a self-care kind of thing. You do spend that time just with yourself for a couple of minutes focusing on what you need, and it kind of does give you a chance to regenerate, if anything.
Even if it is like the Barnum Effect, even if you're looking at it for yourself, I think you're taking a minute of your day to like be like, what do I need most today? What intention do I need to have today?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a scary thing. You don't have to sit there and think, this is how I'm going to communicate with something. And actually, I've never actively sat there and tried to communicate with something. I've had stuff come through my cards, like with the devil experience. And I've also had it at my uni house. We thought we kind of had some sort of feminine energy in the house. And I've had that come through my cards. But I've never actively sat there and tried. And I think it's a really cool thing if something does come through.
Yeah.
I'm not keen on the idea of doing like a Ouija board and actively asking something to come into my life, because I just think that's not a good idea to welcome those energies in.
Yeah.
But if there's an energy around there that wants to influence what you're kind of looking at, that's really cool. And also, you don't have to act upon it. At the end of the day, if an energy comes through, like the devil card, you don't have to act upon that. You can ignore that completely and change your own fate, essentially. Like, you can take the opposite from that. You can see that there's maybe something negative that's come through, and you can focus on, okay, how can I make this more positive? How can I change these things so that the outcome is not that card?
I mean, that's exactly what we did. Do you remember that we asked specifically, we're like, what's the outcome of me being with this person? And you pulled something that said like lonely marriage or something. It was like painful isolation, something like that. And then we got the devil card, and it was very much like, okay, I can feel exactly what this is. Let's let it go. In every sense. It's so powerful. It really is.
It's just a fascinating experience, I think. And it is kind of an experience. And there's so much to consider on it. There are so many different elements. For like example, one thing, I was reading the information pack that comes with the Rider Weight pack. And in there, it tells you that they're depending on different suits that you pull, that can mean different people, essentially. So if you pull like a cup card, that often symbolizes a person with light brown hair and a pale complexion. If you pull a wand card, that can signify someone who has yellow or red hair and blue eyes. If you pull a sword card, that tends to mean someone with dark hair and grey, hazel or blue eyes. And if you pull a pentacle, that tends to mean someone with darker skin, which I think is really interesting. Like, you can use it in multiple ways. It doesn't just have to be like a answer my question kind of thing. It can be like a explorative thing, which is cool.
Oh,
I feel like I've just rambled for like
I
30
love
minutes
it
about
though.
this.
It's so interesting to just hear what you've learned over the last few years.
It's definitely like, is a practice, and you do build up your knowledge on it and stuff. Like, I still couldn't pull a card right now and tell you what that meant. I'd still have to look.
Mm-hmm.
But on that note, should we try virtual reading?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. So this is going to be tricky, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what it comes up with. So if you focus on your question, and I'm going to hold my cards in front of the screen, and if you can just like focus your question on the cards as I'm shuffling. And then if you let me know when you feel ready.
Yes. No.
Okay. We're going to split it in two. And we'll pull the top card, because that is when you paused it and it was midway between.
Mm-hmm.
So the card we've got is the Two of Swords. I presume this is just going to be a one card, because I have no idea how I'm going to pull a past person in the future on Zoom. So if we look at what the Two of Swords stands for, and it did come out right side up, so we're not going to look at the reversed. And the Two of Swords states that it is conformity and suggests courage, friendship, concord in a state of arms, affection and intimacy. It can also symbolise a gift for a lady.
Oh, very interesting.
So,
read the start again for me, the first bit.
So it represents conformity, but it also suggests courage, friendship and concord in a state of arms, affection and intimacy.
Mm. Oh my god. So I was just like, I don't even feel like I should actually say the question now.
No, but, don't if you don't want to. Do you think it relates?
Yeah. I'm very shooketh.
Obviously, like, it's not going to have the same energy as if you did it face to face. I think that's one thing to consider. I know a lot of people are offering like online tarot readings and stuff. Mm-hmm. That is going to be more generalized. Like, you do have to be aware of that if you are doing an online reading.
Yeah, definitely. Would you like to play with my oracle cards?
Oh my god, yeah, let's do it. I need to get more oracle cards.
I'll show you these quickly, because so I was gifted these at Christmas, actually from my friend's dad, Uncle Stephen. And so they are the Moonology oracle cards, and they are beautiful.
They are gorgeous.
They are literally, you can't see this if you're just listening, but they correspond. There's basically there's like new moons, full moons, stuff like that, basically for all of the different star signs. So we've got new moons, full moons, like for all of the different star signs. We've also got moon phase cards. We've got like new moon, waxing crescent, full moon, gibbous moon, and special moon cards. A new moon eclipse, a full moon eclipse, and a waxing moon. There's a whole bunch of blue moon, south node, north node, and there's a lot of suggested spreads as well. There's the Celtic cross spread, which is...
Oh, I like a good Celtic cross.
Yeah, this one I did fairly recently, and it freaked me out so much because I pulled so many cards that, like, the cards very distinctly related to each other and related to kind of where my head was.
Oh man.
Which is really, really weird. There's also like new moon spreads, full moon spreads, and there's like the 4, the 3, all kinds of stuff. And you can just pull, you can pull one card as well, and you can just sort of like, I use it more for like setting intentions typically, but it's something that's like quite new.
Yeah.
So,
I love it.
Talk to me, Hannah, about like the last few days and your plans and stuff. How are you?
The last few days. So the last few days have been a bit of an uncertain one, I think. I had I recently came back from Centre Parks.
Mm-hmm.
I was very lucky to be able to go to Centre Parks, but the idea that the one thing I was hanging my hope on during this kind of lockdown thing was now over was kind of unsettling, I guess. So that's the kind of energy that I've had the last few days.
Okay. Why was you seem slightly disappointed when you talk about Centre Park?
Oh no, Centre Parks was amazing.
Yeah.
It's more because like that was my kind of goalpost. And now Centre Parks has come and gone. I'm like, oh my God, what's my next goalpost?
No, exactly.
Like this pandemic still isn't over.
Yeah.
Like it's that uncertainty and kind of, I feel like a lot of us are feeling very lost at the moment because we're not able to take the next steps that we maybe were planning to take and the direction that we were planning to go on. And I think that's kind of hard for a lot of people at the moment.
Okay. I just had 2 cards fall out.
Ooh, exciting. I like that I've just gone into like a therapy route there.
I think for me, like, especially if I'm talking to, for me, it's easier. If I'm talking to someone, just talking about how they feel, the right things tend to pop out. So I've got full moon in Scorpio. So it's time to release negative energy is the first thing that I just got there.
How?
So let me get up a better description of what this means. This has some really good like intentions and stuff as well. It has some really good like affirmations and stuff. Full moon in Scorpio. Here we go. So if you've been feeling paranoid and acting weird, take this card as a very direct message from the cosmos to stop it. Worrying yourself is pointless. It's time to release any negativity you have around the situation you're asking about. If someone has been unkind to you, perhaps it's time for you to release them. This card heralds an emotionally intense time, since both the full moon and Scorpio themselves are both extremely intense. It's time for you to feel all your feelings. There could be some nastiness in the air when you pull this card. If that's the case, take it as a sign to move away from anyone or anything you feel is toxic. For some, however, this card has a totally different meaning. Your sex life can improve now if you make the effort. Use your magic. You have all you need inside for you to bring about your desired results. Additional meanings. It's time to move from living fearfully to living joyfully.
That could definitely apply to this whole situation.
You're right to have your
like
suspicions is another one. And it says the full moon in Scorpio has a sting at its tail. It can herald a vindictive end to a situation. It can also be a time when you want to be good, but were naughty. If you pull this card, no matter when, your dark side and your shadow self may be showing. So that's interesting, is like, for you, you are like kind through and through. I think the most negative thing and most destructive thing you do as a person is you like attack yourself. You're like, you get very anxious, like you're very sensitive, and you sort of like just leech the negative energy from around you and you like hold it. So yeah, I think that makes sense.
Very true card. Very true card.
The next one I pulled is the North Node. Step out of your comfort zone.
Stop living in your house right now.
Release the negative energy and
actually leaving the house again.
Zone. Maybe that's, you're talking about like needing a new goalpost, needing something else to focus on.
Maybe that goalpost needs to be out of my comfort zone.
Maybe it does.
Probably needs to stop being start a new journal. That tends to be my goalpost.
This, interestingly, is like the final card in the deck.
Oh.
So there is a strong feeling when you get this card that it's time to leave the past behind somehow, because you are headed in the right direction. If you want to be happy and fulfilled, you need to get going towards doing the thing that scares you. And then in brackets it says, within reason. This card is all about living your life purpose, which is possibly what you've asked about. It's urging you to dare to do something different with your life and your direction, to take action. So are you willing to follow through and lead the life you were incarnated to live? If you finally find the courage to make the leap, there's a good chance you'll come and ask yourself, why did I wait so long?
Oh my God.
You're attuned to the moon, so your thing that you need to like remember from this is, I know I'm headed in the right direction.
Oh, I needed that. That's nice.
Additional meanings are you've got this. Time to stop obsessing about something. And you need to face your fear. And you're headed for something which feels like destiny.
Oh, lush. I hope that there's people listening to this who've like also needed that little bit of guidance as well.
I really like this deck. I've seen other people use it, and I've seen them use it in like a really different way. This method just seems to work for me though. Like I'll spend a few minutes and just like think about just where my mind is. You know, like when you're meditating and like you just get a bit quiet and just think about stuff. That's kind of when I typically actually pull stuff that makes sense.
Yeah, so. I like it. I feel like that's a very positive note to like end today's podcast on.
I think so too, and I really hope that we can sort the YouTube out.
I know, and that this has actually worked.
If it doesn't, we can adjust. We can try, but this was still a step forward. Again.
I know, we've actually sat down and done it, which is progress.
I know. It's been fun.
It's been good.
So, we will see you next week for episode 15.
Yes.
And it is going to be episode 15 because I've counted.
We're not going to change the numbers.
Yeah. Well.
We'll see you again soon.
See ya.
Bye.